Visit to Kyiv on Independence Day, a signal about Canada's commitment to Ukraine's defense.
Well, we'll have to see. Canada has spent a decade making many performative announcements that are not being taken seriously by our allies. This is a big commitment by the Prime Minister. Any trip to Kyiv is a big commitment. Simply the train ride itself is a 15-hour effectively commitment from Poland. So for Prime Minister, that's an important show of force by Canada, but it's also telling the Prime Minister is there alone. He was not present when European leaders were at the White House, and he's not present when major announcements are being made by our allies on Ukraine. And so that suggests that Canada still has a lot of heavy lifting to do. And this is clearly one demonstration of that. But of course, actions speak louder than words. What is Canada going to do to show a sustainable commitment to Ukraine for the long term to ensure Ukraine's sovereignty?
Well, Canada did not rule out having boots on the ground. What do you make of that?
Well, so these are sort of the how we kind of try to thread the needle. We don't actually announce any concrete commitments that we would make. Other allies have gone much further in terms of what they would ostensibly provide. And of course, all of our allies know that the Canadian Armed Forces are stretched exceptionally thin after 2 decades of undercapitalization, underfunding, and understaffing. And so for the Prime Minister to say that is one thing. For the Prime Minister to actually fund and build up a Canadian Armed Forces that could actually deliver on that commitment, plus all the other commitments that Canada has to meet its NATO and NORAD obligations, is something quite different.
How skeptical are you about Canada's ability to help?
Well, look, Canada in these cases in the past has been a kingmaker. I mean, the Suez crisis is probably the best example of how Canada was able to effectively mediate conflict quasi between superpowers and key allies. And so Canada has a proud tradition of that. The problem is that, of course, you need instruments of statecraft in order to be able to do that. And so Canada likes to talk about the fact that it has convening power, but it seems these days it is not really able to convene a whole lot of things, in part because we don't have the resources to commit. And so it is promising that Canada wants to play a bigger role, but we'll have to make sure that Canada can actually be taken seriously, because as we see from this trip by the Prime Minister, Canada is quite alone these days in the world.
Mark Carney's out submarine shopping. What on earth is going on in Canada? Why is Prime Minister Mark Carney touring a German submarine factory like he's Captain Nemo, pretending he's got naval expertise to determine which nation can best build Canada a new fleet? You read the headlines, I'm sure. CTV and others have covered it already today and yesterday. Canada has narrowed that list of submarine suppliers down to 2, Germany's ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems and South Korea's Hanwha Ocean. And instead of letting experts do their thing and do their job, Carney hops on a plane, strolls through a shipyard in Kiel, Germany, and stands in front of reporters like he's some kind of seasoned admiral from the Navy. But let's be brutally honest, Mark Carney has never spent a single day or minute or hour in the Navy. He has no experience under sea ice, no background in maritime defense, no clue about torpedo systems or propulsion technology. He's a central banker and a career bureaucrat who has suddenly decided he's the face of Canada's military procurement strategy. And listen, this is the very definition of liberal theater sponsored and promoted by the mainstream media. The photo op, the talking points, the illusion of action being taken here, it's actually being sold as a next step. All while back home, Canadians can't afford groceries, can't get timely health care, and can't pay their mortgage because of the very inflation that this man helped to fuel. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Yeah, well, I'll answer the one directed to me. Look, we will conduct procurement as we always do, fully, transparently, fairly. So as I mentioned in my remarks, the Minister and I will be visiting in Kiel later today, and as it happens in October, we'll be visiting the Korean facility. So even from that perspective, not that I am the technical expert, Minister has more technical expertise. I'm not the technical expert on submarines, but even from that perspective, just to have the assurance of a level playing field in terms of access and information. But I'd stress that these both two bidders, and since I'm in Germany, I'll refer to the German-Norwegian consortium, meet all the technical requirements, the capability requirements. That's why we've been able to accelerate the process. There's a clear difference in their ability, the two finalists, to meet those technical requirements, which are very demanding, because in Canada, submarine means weeks under the sea ice, as well as in the Pacific at the same time. So we need to be able to have year-round fleets in all three coasts under quite demanding conditions. So that's how the field narrows quite quickly. So it's a testament to both of these companies, both of these consortium, that they qualify.
You know, just because Mark Carney knows the words to Yellow Submarine doesn't mean he actually knows about submarines. He knows that, right? Welcome back to Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course share this video far and wide, because people need to hear this. Don't forget to join the conversation down below as well in the comments. We need to talk about this. It's Mark Carney and his theater that he keeps putting on across the world as he travels from country to country, making surprise visits everywhere. And this time, Carney stood there beside German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and claimed there was a clear difference between the two suppliers of submarines, as if he could even understand the technical distinctions he was describing to all of us. He said Canada needs submarines that can spend weeks under sea ice and patrol 3 coasts under demanding conditions. He talked about transparency in the process, fairness in the process, and urgency. But let's call this out for what it is. He's reading lines someone else wrote for him. He does not know a thing about how a submarine operates. None of that comes from his own expertise. None of that insight is his, and it shouldn't be him doing any of these press conferences. Do you really believe the Prime Minister personally compared propulsion systems while he was there? Acoustic stealth designs? Weapons capacity? Did he compare it between TKMS and Hanwha? Do you think he looked at hull integrity reports or life cycle maintenance costs? Of course not. This is all theater. All of that is done by Canada's Navy and Defense procurement experts. Carney has just parachuted in at the end to give illusion that he's in control, while in reality the entire exercise is simply smoke and mirrors. And now you might ask, well, Bakes, what's the harm in that? Isn't it normal for leaders to show support for some of the things they're procuring? Well, here's the problem. This trip cost you money. Flights, security, hotels, entourage, all paid by Canadian taxpayers. And what did we get in return? Not a thing. Absolutely nothing. Because no procurement decision was made in Germany. No contract was signed. No submarine was ordered. It was just a press release and some photos of Carney in a shipyard. That's not what we're looking at here, guys. That's political theater 100%. And when Canadians are drowning in debt, watching their pensions shrink, and waiting hours and hours on end in emergency rooms, this kind of tone-deaf extravagance really starts to sting our society here back in Canada. It shows how out of touch this government really is. And here's the kicker. Even before the trip happened, reporters asked whether Carney visiting TKMS would actually show favoritism to the Germans over the Koreans. The government admitted that, yes, that might be true. In their own words, they said, we are managing that risk. In other words, yeah, it might look bad. It obviously looks biased, but they'll try to spin it so you don't notice. And that's laughable. Imagine being Hanwha right now, the South Korean supplier, waiting for your turn while the Prime Minister of Canada is busy gallivanting around touring your competitor's facility with cameras rolling the whole time. That's not a very level looking playing field, is it? That's not really neutrality when the prime minister's there. That's showboating beyond all kinds of showboating. Now, compare this to other world leaders in the world, because you might be asking, do other world leaders do this? Do you see President Trump touring submarine shipyards in Japan or Germany to decide procurement? Do you see Emmanuel Macron flying around Europe picking which jet fighter looks the shiniest? No, you don't. They rely on their military and procurement professionals to do that, but not when we've got a mainstream media in the pocket of the prime minister. Those guys make the final call based on expert reports, budgets, and strategy. Their procurement leaders do. Leaders don't pretend to be naval engineers in other countries because they respect the process. But here in Canada, Carney wants the shot of him in a hard hat, wants the global media to see him standing beside steel hulls. He doesn't understand any of that steel hull, but he's there anyway, so he can look like he's in command. It's cosplay leadership, it's fake authority, it's dangerous, and it's insulting to Canadians who expect seriousness in defense matters. Nobody should be spending time at that submarine manufacturer in Germany but our procurement leaders, not our prime minister. CTV's own reporting says Canada wants up to 12 new submarines with some sort of urgency, but because the current fleet will be decommissioned by 2035. That's 10 years away. If it's truly urgent, then why are we wasting months on photo ops with the Prime Minister? If it's life or death urgent, shouldn't the Prime Minister be at home ensuring the budget is in place to make sure we can purchase these submarines rather than photo ops? Make sure the contracts are moving and the construction timeline is nailed down by our experts who actually know about this stuff. Instead, he's in Germany pretending to know which supplier can deliver for us. And here's the other truth. None of these subs will be Canadian built. They'll be German built or Korean built. At best, Canada might get some maintenance jobs or token partnerships, but the bulk of the contracts and economic benefits are going overseas. So what exactly was Carney doing there? Well, it seems he was selling out Canada for a selfie and nothing more. He doesn't know about subs. There's no reason for him to be there talking about them, and there's no reason for our media to be following it. And let's not ignore what else happened on this European trip. Carney stood with Chancellor Merz and announced, wait for it, an agreement to sign agreements on minerals. Not an actual trade deal, not even an agreement to do anything in action, but to sign another agreement. Not actual shipments of rare earths or nickel leaving Quebec tomorrow, just another round of vague promises. We promise to promise to promise. Another agreement to maybe do something a little bit later from now. Canadians don't need agreements to sign agreements, folks. Canadians need results, jobs, homes, relief. This is a bigger pattern, and it's a bigger pattern that needs to be stopped. The Liberals are obsessed with their appearances. They're obsessed with press releases and press conferences, whether it's photo ops in foreign shipyards, fake consultations with industry leaders, or grand pronouncements about climate and minerals that never actually materialize into any results whatsoever. Everything they are doing from top to bottom is optics and nothing more. Everything is messaging. Nothing has substance. Show me the substance. Where is it? You can't prove it. Meanwhile, Canadians at home see all of these cracks widening. The food banks are overwhelmed. The seniors are seeing their CPP and OAS clawed back. Housing is unaffordable. Healthcare is crumbling. Immigration numbers are way through the roof, skyrocketing, still without proper infrastructure. And what's the priority of our prime minister? Get on the damn plane and tour submarine factories in Germany for the cameras. Why? What are you doing, Mark? This has to stop. This government's obsession with theater has to end. And by the way, mainstream media, we already see it. So none of this can be pulled over our eyes. We don't elect our leaders to audition for cameras. We elect them to govern, to make tough decisions, and to fight for our interests here at home. If Mark Carney wants to play Admiral, let him buy a model submarine for his bathtub or set up a bridge in his basement. But Canadians deserve better than a man pretending to understand naval engineering while our country crumbles under the weight of inflation, crime, and incompetence, all of which is happening while he's overseas. So here's my challenge to you. Don't fall for the images you see on our mainstream media. Don't be distracted by the photo ops they are trying to portray or the good news that he's buying submarines. Demand accountability, demand results, and demand a government that spends your money the right way on solutions here at home, not on liberal theater halfway across the world. Because the truth is very simple. Real leaders don't need to prop themselves up or use props. Real leaders don't need submarines as backdrops. Real leaders deliver results for their actual people. And until Canada has one of those again, we will continue to be drowned by theater, by our mainstream media in cahoots with the Liberal government, while the ship of our nation sinks deeper into crisis. We'll see you tomorrow.